What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a very special video. So I've been seeing things online, on Twitter, people making these tiers, these lists of characters and movies and just things that they love, separating them into the categories, and I'm like, what is this website? So I went online, I checked it out, and this is an awesome way to kind of flesh out your thoughts on movies and characters and TV shows, all of those things. So this is my very first video, and hopefully an ongoing series. We're going to see how you guys like this, and definitely in the comments section below, let me know how I can change things up, do things better, because this is brand new to me and brand new to you. By the way, they're not sponsoring this, although I should ask them. But for my very first tier list, I figured we would go with the most recent big hit, big thing, and that is Avengers Endgame. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate all of the characters, or the major characters. Of course, there were super minor roles. I tried to include everybody that I could. All of the characters in Avengers Endgame, not by how much I like them as a whole, because I'm going to have characters a bit lower down on this list than I would in my overall rankings of how much I love them as a character. I'm going to place them according to how they were presented to us in Avengers Endgame, the role that they played. I'm going to factor in performances, all of these things. But once again, this is all opinion. I know you guys are going to do this a lot differently than I am doing it, so I need you guys to go and find tiermaker.com, make your list, make your tiers, and come back to this video, comment your thoughts, flesh them out below. I want to hear why you think the best characters are at the top, why you think they are who they are, and then tell me what characters disappointed you in this movie. I know Thor is going to be a divisive one. I know Professor Hulk is going to be a divisive one. By the way, spoilers, but the spoiler ban lifted, so y'all should know that. It's not like you've not seen the movie. So here are my tiers. I'm going to give you guys a small explanation for each one. We start out with the S tier. S stands for super, of course, the best of the best. You had to be special in this movie to get in this category. If you guys haven't watched One Punch Man, the S level, that's the highest. Then we go to A, and A basically means you were awesome in the movie. You gave one of your better performances that you have given in this universe, and you played a vital role. The B tier is still really good. It's good to be in the B tier. Good to be in the B tier? It's really good to be there because that means you played an important part in this movie and you didn't do anything to underwhelm me or disappoint me. The C tier, that's kind of reserved for characters that did not have a ton to do in this movie, but they were still pretty good and they played a part in supporting another character or pushing them in a general direction. The D tier is the tier where I go, you know, you didn't do all that much in this movie. You were kind of just there to be there. You didn't have a big part to play, but there are characters in there that I really enjoy overall. And then the E tier and the F tier, that's the tier that y'all don't want to be in because that means you just weren't, like, you didn't do a lot. And there were characters in this movie that came in at the end, played a vital role towards the end of the movie, but these are the characters that either died in the last one, were snapped and came back, or they just weren't in this movie all that much. So all of those characters belong in their own category because it's hard to put so many characters on this list. So I'm going to focus on the ones who were from the beginning of Endgame all the way until the end. I'm also including like Gamora and Loki. Once again, they weren't snapped, but they weren't in this movie as much. I guess Gamora was, but her poster's black and white, so I'm going to put her in the snap list. So let's start off at the bottom in the F category. Who belongs there? Well, it's not really fair to them once again because they just weren't in the movie all that much. But because of that, we have to put them down low. So I'm putting Agent Sitwell on this list, and let's throw Crossbones on there, just because Crossbones, they didn't do all that much. They had maybe one or two lines apiece. It was just a cameo. They're great in Winter Soldier, but once again, we have to do this based on this movie. Next up is the E category, and for this one, nothing against Robert Redford because I love the guy. I think he's fantastic, but once again, just a cameo, although I think it's awesome that they got him back. And then another character who I was surprised they were focusing on him so much in the marketing, I guess a little more than they should have, and that is Wong. He just wasn't in the movie. He was great in Infinity War, and he had that one line at the end, "You wanted more," which I thought was fantastic, but he didn't do enough in this film to make me say, wow, he belongs in one of the upper tiers. Now let's go up to the D tier, and this is a tier where they weren't bad. They were just kind of in it. They had a tiny impact, just not enough to get them into those top 4 tiers. And I hate to do this because I love this character. I think she's fantastic. But I'm putting Okoye in the D tier. I was so confused as to why they put her on the poster in the first place, because she wasn't in the movie. I thought she was going to be in the movie. I think everybody did, because there was that backlash online of, oh, Okoye's on the poster, but you didn't put her name on there. A lot of that has to do with top billing. So when they didn't put her name on the poster, I said to myself, she's probably not going to be in the movie that much. Now that we all watched the film, I look at Disney's decision not putting her name on the poster, and I'm like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because once again, she wasn't in the movie all that much. And then the other character that I think belongs in the D tier, not for Infinity War, because he was great in Infinity War, that is Ebony Maw. He's in it at the end. He's in it a bit towards the middle in 2014, but once again, doesn't do enough in this movie to make me say he belongs in one of the upper tiers. Now we go to the C tier. And this tier is interesting for me because I'm going to put people on this tier that I think played a vital role for other characters in this movie, but they didn't necessarily stand out and have their own individual moments. But this is the C tier, so they are a bit higher, and I did really enjoy their presence, and you're going to see that with my first character on this list, and that is Renee Russo's character, Thor's mother. She is back. She was really good in this movie. I thought she pushed Thor to where he needed to be at the end of the film. He was still in his, mentally deficient state, and of course physically, but he was where he was at the end, fighting Thanos once again because of his conversation with his mother, and because of that, I thought she played a very important role in this movie. The next one for me, and one of the best moments of this movie, I believe, was at the end when Happy Hogan, who wasn't in the film all that much, honestly, that's why he's in the C tier, but when he was talking to Morgan Stark and talking about cheeseburgers, that, I get chills thinking about it because it was so emotional, so incredible, and for that reason alone, he's in the C tier. I think a lot of people will put him higher, but once again, the B, the A, the S, saving it for the magnificent characters in this movie. And then we move on to Valkyrie, who is in the C tier. Once again, she was in this movie even more than I thought she was going to be in this film, and she was really solid. I just don't think she played a vital role in this plot. She's one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I love Valkyrie, and I honestly want to see her, whether it's starring in her own movie one day or a team-up film, I want to see her doing her own thing because I think she is that powerful of a character in the MCU. Just in this movie, she comes in towards the end with the Pegasus, and I'm like, that is awesome. It's just not enough to get her in that B tier. My next character in the C tier is another character that played an important role in pushing another character forward, and he's probably in the movie less than anyone else on this tier, but that conversation with Tony Stark was so important to where this plot ended up, and he is very good as Howard Stark. He has always been my definitive Howard Stark, so I loved seeing him in this, and I loved that conversation, and I loved where Tony was after that part with his father. Therefore, I think he belongs on this tier. And the final character on this tier, and I think I might get a lot of backlash for this, I'm actually putting Captain Marvel in the C tier. Not because I didn't like her in this movie. Once again, it's a good tier to be on. She just wasn't in the movie all that much. She was in it for maybe 5-10 minutes. Now, she has her moments towards the end. I think when she takes on Thanos, it is awesome, especially when he headbutts her and she just stands there like, okay. But she is sort of a cheat code. I think that's why she wasn't in the movie all that much, because she comes in, does her thing, does exactly what she's supposed to do, and she's not in the movie any more than that. Because of all of those reasons, I'm putting her on the C tier. I think Brie Larson was better, even better in this movie than she was in her own film. I don't love her as a character overall, but I liked seeing the part that she played in this film, and she had some awesome moments towards the end. Let's move on to the B tier, and now we're getting into the characters that played a vital role, made a big impact in this movie. And we start with Pepper Potts. Not only did Howard Stark play a big role in pushing Tony forward, I think this is one of Pepper's. This might actually be my favorite movie with Pepper in it, because she starts in one place, she ends in a similar place but a different place, being content with where she is, and she pushes Tony forward, aka, you may be able to sleep if you don't do this, accomplish this mission, but will you be able to rest? I loved that conversation between her and Tony, and just slowly and subtly pushing Peter off at the end, saying, Tony, it's okay, you can rest now. I loved her character in this movie, and that's why she's on the B tier. My next character on the B tier, and once again, some people didn't like him. I liked the choice to go with Professor Hulk. Now, I was a bit off-putting on first watch, but the more I thought about it, the more I really enjoyed the decision. I did want to see more action from the Hulk, maybe a bit of revenge on Thanos towards the end of the movie, But I see why they did it. I see why they made him do pretty much the most important thing in the film, that is the snap, bringing everybody back. So he did get his justice in that regard. I wanted more action. That's why he's not on the A tier. And I can't believe I'm putting one of my favorite villains of all time on the B tier. Not that it's a bad thing being on the B tier. I will say, he wasn't as good in Endgame as he was in Infinity War, but Infinity War was his movie. That's why I don't put him on the A or the S, because he got all of his fleshing out. In this movie, he was more of a, not generic, I'm not putting that word with Thanos, do not misquote me, but I am putting him on the B because he just didn't get as much to do in this film. A lot of great action, a lot of great consequence from his character and his interactions, but he's on the B tier because he was a bit more of a generic bad guy in this movie than he was in Infinity War. Even though part 1 and part 2 together, he is one of the best villains, I believe, of all time, and he's fantastic. The next character on this tier, and that is little Morgan Stark. What a cute, whoever cast this little girl is brilliant, because this little girl reminded me of Paul Rudd's daughter in the first and second Ant-Man. She's so cute. She is so good. She was perfect. Cheeseburgers? And just the line, "I love you 3000," it was, and I actually heard later on that was something that was ad-libbed on set with Robert Downey Jr. He told her to say it. But guys, brilliant casting, and this little girl is awesome. I hope to see her in more movies one day. The final character I'm putting on this tier is actually War Machine. And a lot of people may get on to me saying, "Austin, what are you doing? War Machine? He didn't have that much to do in the movie." But I watched the movie for a second and a third time, and he was actually really good in the movie. Don Cheadle, I think this is his best performance. I think this is the most he's ever had to do. I love what he does at the end. The emotion that is shown by Don Cheadle in Tony Stark's final moments, I thought was brilliant. And then when he's sitting on the chair watching the hologram, he's really good in this movie. It's subtle. It's not in your face. It's not a performance that people are going to walk away saying, now, Don Cheadle was the best performance in this movie. No, but he slowly and subtly gave one of his best performances in this franchise, and it makes me want to see more War Machine. Hopefully he gets a Disney Plus series or something like that, but for me, he rounds out the B tier because he gave his best performance. That's the B tier. Now we're talking the A tier, and let's get into who belongs on the A, who belongs on the S, and we will start with Thor. Now, the Hulk was divisive. I think this one will be divisive because a lot of people did not like the Big Lebowski Thor. A lot of people said it was too much, it was too over the top. They look at Thor Ragnarok and they saying, oh, he's being too ha-ha funny. And I will admit, at times, the jokes, I wanted them to not stop, but just be a little less in your face. But that's what Chris Hemsworth does. He's so good as this character. And once he had that conversation with his mother, I understood why they made the decision. I understood the reasoning behind doing what they did to Thor. He is great if you look at what he has been through since Thor Ragnarok, losing his best friend and his brother, and of course he lost his mother, and then Odin, and then what he goes through at the end of Infinity War, dealing with that emotion, all of the things that he has lost. It's a lot to handle, guys, and Thor as a character, I loved seeing how that arc came to a close and the beginning of his new arc with hopefully the Guardians of the Galaxy appearing in the next movie. I like the decision. A lot of people did not love the decision, but I thought, especially after watching it again and again, I see why they did it. And you have to kind of nix his powers going into that final battle, because let's face it, if he was the Thor from Infinity War, Thanos would have been gone in about 5 or 10 minutes. Same reasoning why Captain Marvel wasn't there during the entire battle. They had to do that to Thor, and I kind of like the decision. Next up, we're putting Rocket Raccoon in the A tier. Rocket is the glue, he is the heart that holds the Guardians together at this point, and he was doing the same thing for this team. And watching the movie again, I think rewatch actually helped my thoughts on a lot of these characters. I did see the impact of Rocket. He had a lot to do in this movie, and he was really good at it. Bradley Cooper, I don't think gets the recognition that he deserves playing this character, and because of that, I'm putting him in the A tier. My next one is interesting for me, because I've never really liked Nebula before this movie. She's always been that one character that kind of annoyed me in Guardians Volume 2. I'm like, I just don't think I like her. I don't want her to be a part of this team. But her story arc in Endgame is fantastic. And you can see the emotion portrayed in her character, levels to her that we have never seen before. She was actually one of the standouts. She came very close for me being on that S tier because her performance is so magnificent. The only reason she's not on the S tier is because I'm saving that for characters that went through similar circumstances, and I'll explain why here in just a bit. But Nebula, one of the best performances in this movie, one of the best characters in this movie. Next up, we are putting a character that I never thought would be anywhere close to the B or the A tier, and that is Hawkeye, aka Ronan. Hawkeye is so good in this movie, guys. He is fantastic. I loved all of the moments that we got with him as a character, starting out with his family disappearing. Then later on, you see him as Ronan just taking people out. Yeah, he's a really bad guy, and he should probably go to prison for all the things that he's done. But I loved his character arc, and then the emotional battle with he and Nat, seeing who was going to sacrifice themselves for the other person for the Soul Stone. His character arc was great. This is the best we've ever seen Hawkeye. It's probably the best we will ever see Hawkeye. And I loved what they did to him in this movie because he's never really gotten this level of fleshing out before. I guess he did in Age of Ultron, but even then I was like, maybe it's a bit too on the nose, too much. He was great in this movie. I'm so happy to say he belongs in this tier. And my final choice in the A tier is Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I think this is his best performance yet. He was emotional. He was funny. We know he's funny. He's been funny in the first two Ant-Man movies, but his level of emotion, especially seeing his daughter for the first time, and just the scene in the diner and the taco scene, guys, all of this reasoning, and his character was vital because without him, do we get the time travel? I mean, Ant-Man is part of the the rat. It's really kind of the rat, but Ant-Man is part of the reason why we did all of this in the first place. So his character, his performance, everything about him in Endgame, he belongs on the A tier. And that leaves the final three characters, and I'm going to go ahead and place them all up here because you guys know where this is going. I said there was a consistent element to their performance. Come on, Cap. I said there was a consistent element to their performances and their role in the story, really. And that is they all made the ultimate sacrifice. Well, not necessarily Cap. But Cap's story did kind of come to an end. Let's start with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, his best performance yet as Tony Stark. A lot of people were saying, should he get nominated for an Oscar? And I don't care if he does. It's not going to make a difference whether I like the movie anymore or not because I think the movie's fantastic with or without that. But he's so good in this movie. His sacrifice, what his character does, going back and doing things that he said he was never going to do because he found his family, he found his home, he got to live there for 5 years, live it out as well and nicely as he wanted to, but guys, he had to do it. He had to come back and make the ultimate sacrifice play. And Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, I think he was the best element of this movie, absolutely. Even though Cap is my favorite hero in general, he was the best. He belongs on the S tier. Next up, we have Nat, Black Widow. Awesome performance. Just an incredible way of going about bringing her character to an end, and I still can't believe I'm saying that. It's kind of weird. I know we're getting a Black Widow movie. I'd say it's going to be a prequel. I think at this point it's kind of guaranteed it's going to be a prequel. I hope they don't bring her back. I hope they don't bring Iron Man back. Even though I love those two characters, making a sacrifice like that, you have to look at that and say, that's final, that's definitive. I know this is comic books and you have time travel and all of those things, but that emotional resonance will kind of not be lifted or leave me, but it will be affected if they bring those characters back. So doing that with Black Widow was an awesome move. I think she was always kind of Hawkeye's guardian. She was one of the more vital characters of this team, and I just thought her performance, Scarlett Johansson in this film, especially that scene when she's sitting there at the desk and she's talking to Captain America, her emotion, you could tell she had a rejuvenated passion for this character, probably because she knew it was coming to an end. Guys, I love her in this movie. She's so good. She's now one of my favorite Avengers because of this film, and her character arc came to an incredible end. And then finally, Captain America, my all-time favorite superhero on-screen live action. Probably never going to see him again. There's a good chance they'll bring Evans back in maybe 5 or 10 years, explore that story one more time, maybe where he went to take the stone. Well, we know where he went, but what he was doing while he was taking the stones back, maybe exploring his relationship with Peggy a bit more, but where we leave his character. I thought he was safe the first time I watched this movie, and then he walks up on that platform and you see Bucky's face, because Bucky knows. But Bucky knew exactly what he was doing. I said, oh no, they're going to do the thing. And they did the thing, and it was great. And that dance at the end was just completely emotionally resonant with me to this second. I can't stop thinking about how all three of these characters kind of came to an end in the MCU, or the MCU as we know it. Guys, what a great movie. This is my list, my final tier list. Let's roll through it one more time. In the S tier, we have Iron Man, Black Widow, Captain America. In the A tier, we have Thor, Rocket Raccoon, Nebula, Hawkeye, and Ant-Man. In the B tier, we have Pepper Potts, Bruce Banner as the Hulk, Thanos, Little Morgan Stark, and Rhodey. In the C tier, we have Thor's mother, Happy Hogan, Valkyrie, Tony Stark's dad, and Captain Marvel. In the D tier, I hate putting him that low, but you know, that's the way we gotta do it, Okoye and Ebony Maw. In the E tier, we have Alexander Pierce and Wong, and in the F tier, we have Agent Sitwell and Crossbones. Of course, we have our snap category, and maybe we could have put Gamora up there, and maybe we could have put Star-Lord because he does some things and has some lines at the end, but we're not going to do that because that just makes this video a lot more complicated. Did I leave characters off of this list? Absolutely. Where was Korg? Where was Meek? Well, you know what? This was actually a pre-made template, and they didn't have Korg and Meek on there, so you can blame whoever made it. That kind of stinks. I want to know, where did you guys place all of these characters? How do you feel about them? Which ones are your favorite? Which ones are your least favorite? If you like this video and this kind of video, let me know in the comments down below. I will do more. This was really fun. I appreciate you guys watching this, a special video. Tonight, I'm going to try my best to get back on board and talk about Game of Thrones a bit more. And then this week, more movies dropping. I believe we have John Wick Chapter 3. Can't wait to talk about that. And I will catch you guys very soon.